She quickly learned a painful truth of the film industry. Beauty could open the door, but talent, resilience, and sheer stubborn will were the only things that would keep it open. And Susan Hayward, the name she would soon adopt, possessed all three.
Murder? What is this? They're crazy. Oh, no, they don't. They don't pull a raw one like this. They don't put a murder rap on me. I've done a lot of things in my time, a lot of things, but not murder. I told those cops I know nothing about any murder. Nothing, you hear me? Nothing.
When Susan Hayward arrived in Hollywood in the late 1930s, she carried the same hope as thousands before her, the belief that talent and determination could turn dreams into reality. But Hollywood was not a place of easy miracles. It was a factory of illusions, where studios controlled careers, appearances, and reputations. Newcomers were judged instantly, categorized quickly, and often discarded without hesitation. Susan entered this world as just another hopeful young actress with striking looks and a Brooklyn accent she worked hard to soften. Like many ambitious actresses of the time, she chased auditions relentlessly. One of the most significant moments came when she tested for the role of Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. For Susan, this was more than an audition. It was a chance to change her entire life. But fate had other plans. The role went instead to Vivien Leigh, whose performance would become legendary. For Susan, the rejection was devastating. It was her first encounter with Hollywood's harsh truth. Talent alone did not guarantee success. In the 1930s, when opportunities for ambitious young women were limited, beauty could be a stepping stone. Modeling became her first doorway into a larger world. It wasn't glamorous at first, just small jobs, local shoots, and modest pay. But it allowed her to earn her own money and glimpse the possibility of a different future. But what began as a few simple photographs would soon set her on a path toward fame, struggle, and a destiny she never imagined. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to Sajjad Classic for more untold Hollywood stories and classic film legends. Soon she began to imagine something even bigger: Hollywood. To a Brooklyn girl, Hollywood wasn't just a city. It was a promise. A place where ordinary people could become extraordinary, where a young woman with ambition might transform herself into someone unforgettable. But Hollywood, she would soon discover, was not waiting for her. When she finally arrived, studios saw what everyone saw: a beautiful young woman with star quality. Yet they didn't immediately see depth. They offered her minor roles, background appearances, and forgettable parts.
The years that followed were filled with frustration.
Before her big breakthrough, Susan Hayward spent nearly a decade appearing in films where her talent was barely noticed. She appeared in small, forgettable roles, sometimes barely noticed by audiences. Studios admired her beauty, but they struggled to see her as anything beyond another attractive face. Executives doubted her ability to deliver deep, emotional performances. She worked steadily, but rarely in roles that allowed her to shine. In Hollywood Hotel, she appeared briefly in one of her earliest screen roles, a small, almost invisible part that did little to advance her career. She followed this with supporting appearances in films like Beau Geste, where the focus was on male stars, leaving little room for her to stand out. Throughout the early 1940s, she continued to gain experience in films such as The Fighting Seabees alongside John Wayne, Jack London, where she played a supporting romantic lead, Canyon Passage, one of her first roles to show hints of emotional depth. These films kept her employed and visible, but they did not make her a star. She was still seen as dependable, attractive, and professional, yet not extraordinary. Hollywood knew her face, but not her power. Typecasting threatened to trap her before her career had even begun. Yet Susan refused to accept this fate. She studied scripts obsessively, watched seasoned actors on set, and worked tirelessly to improve her craft. She believed that if she could just find one role, one real opportunity, she could prove them all wrong.
That opportunity finally arrived in 1947.
all of this would change with one film. She was cast in Smash Up, The Story of a Woman, a film that told the painful story of a singer whose life spirals into alcoholism and personal destruction.
Without you to hold me, it doesn't seem right. I miss that feeling tonight.
This was not a glamorous role. It demanded raw vulnerability, emotional honesty, and the courage to appear flawed, broken, and human on screen. Many actresses might have feared such a part, but Susan embraced it. And when the film was released, Hollywood was stunned. Gone was the studio's pretty redhead. In her place stood an actress capable of portraying addiction, heartbreak, and despair with chilling authenticity. Critics praised her performance for its intensity and realism. Audiences felt her pain. For the first time, Susan Hayward wasn't just seen, she was respected. The role earned her a nomination from the Academy Awards for Best Actress. It was the recognition she had fought for through years of rejection. More importantly, it changed how Hollywood saw her forever. From that moment on, Susan Hayward was no longer an aspiring actress struggling for attention. She had become a dramatic force, a woman whose strength, vulnerability, and emotional power could carry an entire film. And her greatest performances were still ahead.
They Won't Believe Me, 1947.
In this twisty RKO noir directed by Irving Pitchell, Hayward plays Verna Carlson, the sultry, opportunistic other woman in a tangled web of infidelity, murder, and courtroom drama.
The only thing I'm interested in is how much people spend.
There's a name for that kind of interest.
Sure. Gold digging. I read a poem once in high school, something about gathering rosebuds while you can. Only instead of rosebuds, I gather orchids.
Even better.
And of course, what goes with the orchids? Shows, expensive restaurants, and nightclubs. And while I'm reading my poem, I think I should warn you. I'm not particular who I gather my orchids from.
Robert Young stars as the philandering Larry Ballantyne, who marries for money but can't stay faithful. Hayward's Verna is the glamorous, ambitious secretary mistress who becomes central to the deadly scheme. She doesn't dominate the runtime, but delivers one of her early signature tough cookie with a heart turns, seductive yet calculating, with flashes of vulnerability that hint at the powerhouse she'd become. Critics noted the film's labyrinthine plot and strong ensemble. Variety called it a solid programmer, with Hayward adding spark in her supporting slot. Hayward later joked in interviews that playing the bad girl in these noirs taught her how to steal scenes without saying much. Perfect training for her meatier 1950s roles. The Lost Moment, 1947.
I was afraid you were never coming back.
Why, Juliana?
I don't know. I don't. You've only been gone 2 days, and yet my life stopped. I dreamed that something had happened to you. And I knew I could never live without you.
A moody, Gothic-tinged psychological thriller based on Henry James's The Aspern Papers, directed by Martin Gable. Hayward shines in a dual role, the fragile, enigmatic Tina Bordereau and, in flashbacks, her mother Juliana, 2 generations of women guarding a literary secret in a decaying Venetian palazzo. Robert Cummings is the scheming publisher. Agnes Moorehead chews scenery as the elderly Juliana in the present. Hayward is excellent and very beautiful, per contemporary notices, blending innocence and hidden steel. The Saxon Charm, 1948.
All I know is that you've become so tangled up with Matt Saxon, I can't tell one of you from the other. You've turned into an intellectual snob who has nothing in common with his wife. You sent me away so I wouldn't interfere with your writing, and then you went to Mexico. I don't understand you anymore, and I'm fed up with the way you're treating me.
At Universal, Hayward took a supporting but pivotal turn as the long-suffering wife of a flamboyant Broadway producer, Robert Montgomery, in this witty, theater-world comedy drama directed by Claude Binion. Her character endures the ego clashes, affairs, and artistic tantrums of the Saxon charm crowd with quiet dignity and sharp-tongued resilience, classic Hayward steel beneath the polish. Reviews were mixed on the film's stagey feel, but Hayward earned praise for grounding the satire. Variety noted her as one of the bright spots in an otherwise uneven ensemble. Trivia. The film's insider Broadway humor reflected Hayward's own growing frustration with Hollywood's studio games. She was already pushing for better roles. My Foolish Heart, 1949. My Foolish Heart, 1949, Susan Hayward's tearful second Oscar shot. In 1949, Susan Hayward delivered another knockout as the ultimate woman who loved too much in My Foolish Heart, a lush, weepy romance that became her second Best Actress Oscar nomination. She plays Eloise Winters, a bright, innocent college girl in late 1930s New York who falls hard for dashing pilot Walt Dreiser, Dana Andrews. Their whirlwind romance, dancing, dreaming one passionate night, ends in pregnancy and tragedy when Walt dies in the war. Desperate, Eloise marries his best friend Louis, Kent Smith, for security, but the marriage is icy and empty. Years later, she's a bitter, secretly drinking suburban housewife whose foolish heart still aches with regret. Hayward takes us from glowing first love to hollow-eyed despair, sneaking drinks, masking pain with brittle smiles, and quietly unraveling. It's classic early Hayward, vulnerable yet fierce, turning soap into something heartbreakingly real. The film itself got slammed as overly sentimental, aqueous, Bosley Crowther's word for tear-drenched cliché, and maudlin. Adapted from J.D. Salinger's short story Uncle Wiggily in Connecticut, Salinger hated it so much he never allowed another of his works to be filmed. Critics called the script manipulative, but Hayward almost always got a pass. She elevated the melodrama with raw, naturalistic emotion. Modern fans on IMDb and Letterboxd often say her performance is the only reason to watch. It's aged into an underrated women's picture gem. At the 1950 Oscars, the film scored 2 nominations. Best Actress for Hayward, she lost to Olivia de Havilland in The Heiress, and Best Original Song for the dreamy title tune, My Foolish Heart, which became a jazz standard forever covered by Sinatra, Bill Evans, and more. No win, but the nod boosted her star wattage. In My Foolish Heart, Hayward proved she could make even the soggiest soap feel like genuine heartbreak, one foolish, unforgettable beat at a time. Interesting trivia. Hayward replaced Teresa Wright at the last minute. Wright had been cast but dropped out or was replaced, giving Susan the role that many say fit her intense style better.
House of Strangers, 1949.
When you die, what a treasure you'll leave to the world. 4 men full of hate.
These are my sons. This is none of your business.
One of them is, I love him. I want him to love me. To be able to love me.
This is none of your business.
Don't write that letter. Don't send any more. Leave him alone. Give him a chance. You've ruined his life up to now. Let him have it from now on. Stop filling him full of poison and hate.
Joseph L. Mankiewicz's gripping, Shakespearean-tinged family noir, a loose King Lear in an Italian-American banking clan, gave Hayward one of her strongest early leads as Irene Bennett, the elegant, worldly, independently wealthy mistress of favored son Max Monetti, Richard Conti. Engaged to sweet Maria, Deborah Paget, Max is drawn to Irene's sophisticated allure. She becomes his emotional anchor, urging him to abandon revenge against his tyrannical father, Edward G. Robinson, and weak brothers. Hayward is stunning, glamorous, coolly intelligent, and fiercely loyal, with that signature hip-sway walk and fiery temper in the climax. Bosley Crowther in the New York Times was lukewarm on the script, A House of Cards, but admitted she was a nifty to look at and performed a strong female character. Modern viewers call her elegant and feisty, eclipsing others. No awards, but it solidified her at Fox. Trivia. The film was remade as the Western Broken Lance, 1954, with Spencer Tracy. Hayward's sophisticated urbanite became a ranch wife, proof of her versatility. I'd Climb the Highest Mountain, 1951.
Of the months that followed, I have little recollection, for I was like one dead myself. In the selfishness of my grief, I'd begun to commit the gravest sin a woman can commit against her husband. I'd ceased to care how I looked. As the saying is, I had simply let myself go.
A warm, technicolor slice of Americana based on Cora Harris's semi-autobiographical novel. Hayward stars as Mary Elizabeth Thompson, the sophisticated city bride of a dedicated Appalachian preacher, William Lundigan. She struggles to adapt to rural Georgia life in 1910, handling snakes in church, feuds, illness, but ultimately embraces the simple faith and community with quiet strength and humor. Bosley Crowther praised the healthy country look and gentle sense of humor. Variety called it wholesome entertainment. No nominations, but it was a hit. Trivia. Filmed on location in Georgia's Blue Ridge Mountains, the experience enchanted Hayward. She fell in love with the state, later marrying Georgia rancher Eaton Chalkley and choosing to be buried in Carrollton beside him. Crowther noted the improbability of her as a country wife, but audiences bought every minute of her transformation. Rawhide, 1951.
Sticking our hands raw like a couple of rats. Letting them step all over us, ordering us around. Mrs. Owens, go along with Tevis and Groff. No, the baby stays here. Get a move on. Put the baby to bed. Owens, get out the team. Follow him, Tevis. Groff, keep an eye on him. Where are you going, Mrs. Owens? Do this, do that. And we did it.
Well, what else could we do? You can't argue with a gun.
And where did it get us?
Well, we're still alive, aren't we?
Yes, we're still alive, and you know what's going to happen just as well as I do.
A tense, claustrophobic Western directed by Henry Hathaway, shot in Lone Pine, California. Hayward plays Vinnie Holt, a tough, no-nonsense woman traveling by stagecoach with her infant niece, or young charge, when escaped convicts, led by Hugh Marlowe, seize the remote relay station. Opposite Tyrone Power as the station agent, she's protective, resourceful, and steely, firing guns, outwitting captors, and showing maternal ferocity. It's one of her most physical early roles. Reviews highlighted the suspense. It was a solid box office performer. No awards. Trivia. The harsh desert location and intense action sequences left Hayward with lasting respect for Western crews. She later called it real cowboy work. The Snows of Kilimanjaro, 1952.
I thought that if I was here with you, and your work came well, and you were happy here again, with me here, don't make me lose all my pride. I love you, Harry. I love you with all my heart.
We've got a whole lifetime ahead of us.
Henry King's lavish, Hemingway-inspired epic, one of 1952's biggest hits, grossing millions. Hayward is Helen, the devoted, level-headed second wife of dying writer Harry Street, Gregory Peck, on the slopes of Kilimanjaro. While flashbacks explore his passionate past with Cynthia, Ava Gardner, Helen represents quiet strength, nursing him through fever and regret. The role is less flashy than Gardner's, but anchors the nostalgia and redemption. Bosley Crowther raved about the magnificent color cinematography and overall mood. Variety called it an engrossing dramatic mixture. Trivia. Her scenes with Peck crackle with chemistry. The film's African location work was mostly studio-bound, with stunning rear projection. The Lusty Men, 1952.
You ain't the only guy who tried to take me from behind the counter in that hash house and set me up in business. You ain't the biggest, you ain't the strongest, you ain't the richest, and you ain't the prettiest. But you're the only one wanted what I wanted. A decent, steady life.
Honey.
Nicholas Ray's gritty, melancholy rodeo drama is now considered a masterpiece, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Hayward stars as Louise Merritt, the pragmatic ranch wife desperate for a stable home. When her husband Wes, Arthur Kennedy, teams up with washed-up champion Jeff McLeod, Robert Mitchum, she's pulled into a simmering emotional triangle, yearning for security, yet drawn to Mitchum's doomed charisma. She's tough, sensual, and heartbreaking. Bosley Crowther in the New York Times lauded the vivid and pungent realism of rodeo life. Modern critics call it Ray's most reflective work. No awards, but a high point in her 1950s run. Trivia. Real rodeo footage adds documentary punch. Hayward's chemistry with Mitchum is electric. She later said the role let her explore a woman torn between two kinds of men. The President's Lady, 1953. A dignified historical drama based on Irving Stone's novel. Hayward gives a deeply felt performance as Rachel Donaldson Robards Jackson, the scandal-plagued wife of Andrew Jackson, Charlton Heston. Their bigamous early marriage and the vicious political smears that followed, she was labeled a bigamist and adulteress, nearly destroy her. Hayward shows the quiet suffering, fierce loyalty, and eventual heartbreak of a frontier woman thrust into the White House spotlight. Solid reviews praise the period detail and her restraint. No Oscar nomination. Trivia. Heston and Hayward had strong on-screen chemistry. The film humanized the often mythologized Rachel Jackson. Garden of Evil, 1954.
Followed me, didn't you? Well, if you want to know where you are or where you're going, you come to me. And you can tell that to the others, too. You can tell them that without me, they're nowhere. Without me, they're lost. And when you're lost in this country, mister, you're dead.
Then you won't have to have that gun.
You underrated me a little, hooker. Don't do it.
Henry Hathaway's lush CinemaScope Western adventure shot in Mexico. Hayward plays Leah Fuller, the desperate, enigmatic wife who hires 4 gunmen, Gary Cooper, Richard Widmark, Cameron Mitchell, Victor Manuel Mendoza, to rescue her husband from a collapsed gold mine deep in Apache territory. She's the strong, mysterious catalyst, beautiful, secretive, and capable of riding and shooting with the best of them. The film blends action, greed, and doomed romance. Reviews were mixed on the plot, but praised the stunning locations and cast chemistry. No awards. Trivia. Part of Fox's big location push, the title refers to the treacherous Garden of the Mexican Wilderness. I'll Cry Tomorrow, 1955.
I have to treat you right. I've seen you in the newspapers dining with Gary Cooper.
I don't even know Gary Cooper. Those are just publicity pictures.
That's settled, then you'll stay for lunch.
You know, I've really got to go. I'm keeping people waiting.
Well, not for 10 years. Look,
Picture this. It's 1955, and MGM has just handed Susan Hayward the role of a lifetime, the kind that could make or break a career already stacked with nominations. I'll Cry Tomorrow isn't just another glossy biopic. It's a raw, unflinching gut punch based on Lillian Roth's best-selling autobiography. Susan didn't just want the part. She fought for it, campaigned with the ferocity of a woman who knew she could turn pain into art. And when the cameras rolled under director Daniel Mann, she didn't hold back. The film opens with young Lillian Roth under the iron control of her domineering stage mother, Katie, Jo Van Fleet, who drives her relentlessly onto vaudeville stages. Then the screen flashes forward, and Susan Hayward explodes into the role of adult Lillian with ferocious energy. Right from the start, she belts out "Sing, You Sinners" in a long, high-energy production number, singing every note herself, no dubbing, no safety net. Her voice isn't smooth or trained, it's gritty, powerful, and full of fire, perfectly capturing the swing-era spirit. Hayward even traveled to Las Vegas to watch the real Lillian Roth perform, absorbing her tone, delivery, and stage presence. What follows is a brutal downward spiral. Lillian rises to Broadway stardom, headlines the Palace Theater, falls deeply in love with childhood sweetheart David, Don Taylor, only to lose him to sudden illness. Grief shatters her. Marriages collapse, an abusive playboy, then others. Her mother's suffocating grip tightens, and alcohol becomes her refuge. Hayward spares nothing. The glamorous star descends into blackouts, desperate lies, delirium tremens in squalid rooms, and a terrifying near-suicide leap from a window. For the later scenes, she dramatically lost weight, her face gaunt, eyes haunted, body shaking, making every moment feel painfully real. The film's tagline said it best. This story was filmed on location, inside a woman's soul. She sang all her own numbers, no dubbing, lost weight dramatically, and bared her soul in raw, unsparing scenes. Her fourth Oscar nomination for Best Actress. She won the Cannes Best Actress Award. Critics raved. Bosley Crowther called it one of the year's most powerful films. Trivia. Hayward later said the role nearly broke her emotionally. She identified deeply with Roth's struggles. It remains one of her most acclaimed performances. Top Secret Affair, 1957.
My private life is my own.
Look, I wouldn't try to tell you how to handle a tank division. Don't you try to tell me how to write a profile. It's the little things about a man that make him big. Winston Churchill smokes too many cigars. FDR had a dog that turned up in all the crossword puzzles. You see? It's the little things. A woman needs a little more time than that. Female logistics, General. Tomorrow night.
A rare foray into screwball comedy for Hayward. She plays Dorothy Dottie Peel, the sharp, powerful head of a major publishing empire who tries to torpedo the appointment of brash General Daniel Goodwin, Kirk Douglas, by digging up dirt, only to fall for him in a battle of the sexes whirlwind. It's fast-paced, witty, and showcases her comic timing and glamour. The New York Times found it generally dull, but fans loved the Douglas Hayward fireworks. Trivia. A change of pace after heavy dramas, she and Douglas sparred brilliantly on set. I Want to Live, 1958.
Barbara, you've got to stay from the governor.
Does this mean that I might get to live?
No, it's just a delay to give your lawyer time to argue in court this morning.
We wouldn't want you to think that...
That I'm not going to be executed.
Yes, sir? Yes, sir. Until further word from you.
Oh, Father, why did they torture me? Why did they torture me?
Susan Hayward's long-awaited Oscar triumph. By the late 1950s, Susan Hayward had 4 Oscar nominations and 0 wins. She was overdue. Then came I Want to Live, Robert Wise's gritty, independent noir biopic that finally delivered the gold. Hayward plays Barbara Graham, Bloody Babs, the real-life party girl, prostitute, and convicted murderer executed in California's gas chamber on June 3, 1955, for the 1953 killing of an elderly widow during a botched robbery. The film, drawn from Graham's letters and journalist Ed Montgomery's Pulitzer-winning reporting, strongly suggests she was railroaded, framed or unfairly tried amid media hysteria and sensational justice. Hayward owns every frame. The movie opens with a jazzy, fast-cut montage, cool score by John Mandel featuring Jerry Mulligan. Smoky bars, quick flings, sharp wisecracks, red hair flashing under neon. She's brash, seductive, unapologetic. That's what they call red when I wear it, she snaps. No fragile victim here, just a tough survivor laughing at danger. Then the trap closes. Arrested with accomplices Jack Santo and Emmett Perkins, Graham faces a circus trial, rigged evidence, lying witnesses, tabloid frenzy dubbing her the most beautiful victim the gas chamber has ever claimed. Hayward layers steel with vulnerability, flashes of fear beneath the defiance. The second half is relentless suspense, endless appeals, clock-watching, a phone that never rings. Biographies, obituaries, interviews, and reliable accounts of her life paint a picture of a tough, resilient woman who faced plenty of turmoil, stormy marriages, a bitter divorce, a suicide attempt amid extreme stress, headline-making fights, the loss of her second husband, and ultimately, cancer. But alcohol abuse is conspicuously absent from her story. Her roles as alcoholics were so convincing that some fans and casual observers have speculated or assumed parallels to her real life, especially given how deeply she immersed herself in those characters. She was known for her fiery Irish temper, emotional intensity, and occasional high-stress breakdowns. Susan Hayward's marriages, a tempest of passion, heartbreak, and quiet redemption. Susan Hayward's off-screen romances played out like one of her own melodramas, full of fiery highs, crushing lows, and that unyielding resilience that made her a star. Her first marriage to actor Jess Barker was a classic Hollywood whirlwind, born amid the patriotic fervor of World War II. In mid-1943, while volunteering at the legendary Hollywood Canteen, a star-studded spot where celebrities served meals and danced with servicemen, Susan locked eyes with the handsome, up-and-coming Barker. He was charming, ambitious, and smitten with the red-headed bombshell who'd already turned heads in bit parts. Their chemistry was electric. By July 23, 1944, they tied the knot in a simple ceremony at St. Thomas Episcopal Church in Hollywood, with close friends like Ronald Reagan in attendance. Less than a year later, on February 19, 1945, joy doubled when she gave birth to fraternal twin sons, Timothy and Gregory, in Los Angeles. For a brief moment, it seemed like the perfect Tinseltown family. Susan's career was heating up, Barker was landing roles, and the boys were the apple of her eye. But paradise cracked fast. The marriage turned stormy almost from the start, plagued by Barker's professional jealousy. He resented Susan's rising star while his own stalled, and her demanding schedule that left little room for domestic bliss. Whispers of infidelity swirled on both sides. Barker accused her of affairs with co-stars and moguls like Howard Hughes, a rumor Susan always denied with a fiery glare, while she countered with claims of his cruelty and controlling nature. By 1953, Susan had had enough. She filed for divorce, citing extreme mental cruelty and seeking full custody of the twins. She even skipped the Hong Kong location shoot for Soldier of Fortune, 1955, to stay stateside for the hearings, forcing the production to film her scenes with Clark Gable on a Hollywood soundstage. The stress was unrelenting. Tabloids feasted on the drama, though the couple managed to keep the ugliest details somewhat under wraps. The fallout nearly destroyed her. Exhausted from the divorce, overwork, and the emotional toll of losing roles to the scandal, Susan hit rock bottom in April 1955. Some reports pinpoint March 7th. Alone in her Beverly Hills home, she swallowed a handful of sleeping pills in a desperate bid to end the pain. But regret hit like a thunderbolt. She staggered to the phone and called her mother, Ellen, gasping for help. Police arrived and had to smash down the locked door to reach her, pumping her stomach just in time. She later downplayed it as a moment of weakness, but the incident made headlines worldwide, cementing her image as a tragic figure off-screen. Barely recovered, Susan dove back into scandal that summer with a headline-grabbing brawl that showcased her infamous Irish temper. Susan shrugged it off, channeling the energy into her Oscar-nominated role in I'll Cry Tomorrow that same year, a film about addiction and redemption that mirrored her own chaos. After the Barker debacle, Susan swore off love, focusing on her sons and career, but fate had other plans. In early 1957, while filming in Georgia, she met Floyd Eaton Chalkley, a tall, soft-spoken Southern gentleman who was worlds away from Hollywood's glitz. Chalkley, a successful rancher, businessman, and former FBI agent, charmed her with his steady demeanor and genuine kindness. No jealousy, no drama, just quiet support. They married on February 8, 1957, in a low-key ceremony in Phoenix, Arizona, attended by a handful of friends. Susan, at 39, finally found her anchor. The couple settled into a blissful rural life on a sprawling 500-acre farm near Carrollton, Georgia, complete with horses, cattle, and rolling pastures. Eaton, as she called him, encouraged her to semi-retire, and for the first time, Susan seemed truly content. She gushed in rare interviews about how Chalkley saved her, teaching her the value of simplicity over stardom. Their 9-year union was peaceful and loving, a stark contrast to her first, until tragedy struck. On January 9, 1966, Chalkley died suddenly at age 59. The loss shattered Susan. She was inconsolable, retreating from Hollywood for 5 years in deep mourning. Devastated and searching for meaning, Susan turned to faith. A longtime dabbler in astrology, she'd consulted celebrity astrologer Carol Reiter for everything from contract signings to lucky hours. On June 30, 1966, her 49th birthday, she was baptized into the Catholic Church by Father Daniel J. McGuire at St. Peter and Paul's in Pittsburgh's East Liberty neighborhood. It marked a profound shift, from the fiery, scandal-plagued diva to a reflective woman seeking redemption. Through it all, Susan Hayward's marriages mirrored her screen personas: tough, passionate, and unbreakable. The Barker years were a scandal-soaked storm that nearly sank her, but the Chalkley era brought the calm she deserved. In the end, her personal life, with its dramatic twists and quiet triumphs, proved she was every bit the fighter she played on film. Susan Hayward's last years were a poignant coda to a life defined by unbreakable spirit, both on-screen and off. The woman who had clawed back from childhood injuries, survived a stormy marriage, a suicide attempt, and Hollywood's brutal spotlight, now faced her most formidable enemy: cancer. It struck quietly but relentlessly, and many in her inner circle and in Hollywood lore traced its origins to one infamous film set from nearly 2 decades earlier. In March 1972, during a routine medical checkup, doctors discovered a tumor in her lung. The news was grim. The cancer had already metastasized, spreading to her brain. This wasn't a slow creep. It was aggressive. But Susan battled on, driven by sheer willpower, medical treatment, and her deepening Catholic faith. She retreated from public life, living quietly in her Beverly Hills home, but refused to surrender easily. Many, including Susan's circle, believed the cancer stemmed from toxic radioactive fallout during the 1956 filming of The Conqueror in St. George, Utah, near atomic test sites. The entire cast and crew were exposed. John Wayne, Agnes Moorehead, Pedro Armendariz, director Dick Powell, and Hayward all later died of cancer. Susan Hayward fought to the end. Her final public appearance was at the 1974 Academy Awards, where, frail but elegant, supported by Charlton Heston, she presented the Best Actress Oscar. On March 14, 1975, at age 57, she suffered a final seizure at her Beverly Hills home and passed away. She was buried in Carrollton, Georgia, next to her beloved Eaton. From a Brooklyn girl told she might never walk again to the Oscar-winning queen of the screen who played women who refused to break, Susan Hayward lived exactly as she acted: tough, passionate, unapologetic, and unforgettable. The Brooklyn bombshell didn't just survive Hollywood, she owned it.